Nō reira, tēnei te mihi ki a koutou, kua tai mai nei I tēnei ata, ka nui te mihi. Roa te wā tahi o koutou, I kite ana, nō reira ki te whanaunga Grace, nō mai a hoki mai, koe hoki kasi mai. Nō reira I tēnei wā ka huri a mātou whakaro ki o rātou, o tātou tīpuna ko wehe atu ki tua o te arawai. Ka nui a mātou aroha ki a rātou, nō reira ki te tini me te mano oki atu rā. Rātou tō ngā mati ki a rātou, tātou te hongo ora, ki ora rā tātou toa. He anō tātou. Hei mua koe a mātou e hoa, hei tohutu a mātou mahi katoa. Ko koe anō hoki hei whakakaha I a mātou, ki a whai korori ai koe I a mātou mahi katoa. E mea timata, e mea mahi, e mea whakaoti I roto I a koe. Kia whiwhi ai mātou, te ora tonu, te mea I ata whaitia nei e koe, ko koe hoki tō mātou āriki. Amene.
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 Kia ora.
Kia ora cousin Tawi. Ka pai koutou. I'll hand over to Joanna just to kick us off.
Ka pai.
Good to see everybody here. We are expecting a few more, so hopefully they'll just come online as we go along. But we'll just kick things off.
Okay. Morena, everyone. I'll just do a quick little intro for those who don't really know me, because there's a few new faces here in the Solomon family. Kia ora. Ko taumatu te maunga, ko mga poke te awa, ko te toki a tāpiri te waka, ko Ngāti Mata Whaiti tōku hapu, ko Iwitea tōku marae, ko Joanna Whawhita aho. My tipuna are Parimahanga Romona Tūroa. I got voted on to support Iwitea marae a couple of years ago now, or a few years ago now. This is my 4th year being with the Trust. And I'm up for re-election this year, along with Piri. And I've been working alongside Bob and Namu and Naomi Wilson from Te Rauhina, and we've been doing some good work, but now it's time to move into more work with the Charitable Trust, and I appreciate all the time that you've given to this morning to join us. Thank you very much. So Bob and I are going to tag team this presentation because Naomi's not able to be with us today. And Pierre's got whānau and Napier as well. So, but if they're able to join us later on and chime in, we may have some other whānau join us, kei te pai. So what I was going to take you through was just our values, mission and vision. And for those that who have been on the Wānangas with us, we always start with this. It just sets the scene for our hui. Ka pai? Kia ora. Okay. Oh. I'm getting a bit going the wrong way. There we go. Our values, whanangatanga, to inspire courageous leadership aligned with our hapu, to continue and strengthen belonging, tikanga, perseverance, to uphold tikanga and kawa on our marae and in our everyday lives, wairuatanga, courage to nurture the connection of spiritual and physical well-being and the beliefs of our hapu, manaakitanga, to achieve integrity through caring for ourselves and our manuhiri, kaitiakitanga, rejuvenate and protect our tile for the benefit of our hapu and our future generations. Our mission statement and keywords taken from our values help form our mission statement, which is be courageous together, driven by our tikanga and kawa to achieve marae sustainability, empowered by spiritual and physical well-being to strengthen social development while acknowledging the integrity of our environment and economy to build a prosperous future. And our vision for Te Whakaki Nui Aroa Trust is hui huia ngā kia pūwai, together empowered and prosperous. Over to you, Bob.
Thanks for that, Joanna. So I guess the basis for having this Wānanga came from out of our AGM last year, where there were some questions raised around the construct of the charitable trust. So we committed then to hold a Wānanga just to discuss any questions that there may be around the charitable trust. So in terms of what the trustees want to happen, it is that we establish a new charitable trust. The trustees have taken their lead from, I guess, what's been done by other organisations, especially with Tātou Tātou Te Wairoa. So the proposition that we're putting forward is that the trustees of our standard trust, our discretionary trust, Te Whakaki Nui Aroa, also serve as trustees of the charitable trust as well. And that's what's been incorporated into the setup for the charitable trust. Just next slide, please.
Right. Oh. My keyboard is not working for some reason. Aroha mai whānau. There we go.
And why do we need a charitable trust? The main reason for us is around the economic efficiency. So a lot of the work that we will be focused on falls within an area that's really not about making money. It has charitable purposes. And we want to take benefit of the ability to pass through some of our taxable income to an entity that doesn't get taxed to carry on the work that we do. An example of that came to us last year when we were working with our rangatahi rōpū to organise a taiao rangatahi wānanga. So, rangatahi rōpū had actually gone out and sought funding from various entities. In this case, it was the Eastlands Trust, to support the activities of that wānanga. So, because we didn't have a charitable trust, what we ended up doing was actually passing that money through Whakaki Marae, which is a charitable trust, to support that kaupapa. So that is a kaupapa which falls under charitable purposes, and therefore, we don't have to pay tax on the work that's done under that entity. So that was pretty much the reason, the primary reason for setting up the charitable trust, is so that we can have economic efficiency. Something longer term that may be required if stepping into the social services space is that some contract for social services actually need to be with registered charities. So those were the two main reasons why we decided to establish the charitable trust. It has implications in doing that. There does need to be a separate governance structure between our standard or discretionary trust, Te Whakaki Nui Aroa, compared to the charitable trust. So also as well as having a separate governance structure, we also need to keep separate accounts between our standard trust and also a charitable trust. And we need to hold separate meetings around the both. However, that's just manageable through processes that we follow. So yeah, the benefits exceed what the what some of the implications may be around this. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know why this is not working. Anyway.
Okay there, Joanna?
Yeah, no, something's going on. I'm having technical issues. Aroha mai. Here we go, we're back. Okay, there you go.
So in terms of the proposed structure of the trust, you'll see that that's the high level, that's the proposed model there. So for those who may not be aware, we're provided with a distribution. Each ka hui is from tātou or to Wairo. That distribution is a percentage, and at the moment it's 40% of the profit that tātou makes from out of its operations. So that 40% profit of tātou is split amongst the 7 ka hui. So there was a set amount over the first 3 years, but from the 4th year onwards, it's down to whatever the profits of the company may be. So last year, tātou announced their profits, which saw a distribution of 63,000 back to the ka hui. So that's what's come back to us. Now that, under the structure that we have now, that the distribution goes into our standard trust, which is Te Whakaki Nui Aroa Trust, and that gets taxed at a rate of 33%. There's part of our discussions with our lawyers and working through the setup of the charitable trust was a means of minimising the tax that we have to pay on those monies. So there is a thing called a pass-through, which is allowed for our standard trust there, where we can pass through some of our distributions through to another entity like a charitable trust, and we don't get taxed on it. The main condition around that is that it must be done within a certain amount of your financial year end, within 6 months of the year end. So that's our means of getting, of achieving tax efficiency on the monies that that we've got incoming, is to pass it through to the charitable trust and do the work under there. No, that's fine. So in terms of the operational model, you'll see there that Whakaki Nui Aroa Trust has the relationship with tātou, and then it also, underneath that, was part of its group, there's going to be a charitable arm. On the one side. On the other side, there's an investments grouping, which over time will be built out, but it's not because we don't really have the capital at this stage. But for most of the work that was scoped out in terms of doing, it will be under the charitable arm. For example, we're ramping up to do some work on tile, so we want to do that tile work under the charitable arm because it fits our charitable purposes, or it fits within the charitable purpose of it. So yeah, you'll see there the setup of the trust. There's 3 of the trustees representing our marae, Whakaki, Iwitia and Tarauhina. We each have a role there. I'm the treasurer, Naomi Wilson's the trustee chair, and Joanna's the trustee secretary. So we meet on a weekly basis to discuss the work that we want to do. We've not taken on any operational staff at the moment, but that is what we're gearing up to do. And a key piece of that is to establish the charitable trust. Kia pai. Thank you.
Okay, whānau. So from our registrations, we had some whānau register for the hui, and they put through some pātai. So we thought we'd address that pātai now, because it may form some more discussion when we get to the feedback stage, which is when we want some kōrero from you. So yeah, we've got 12 pātai. We'll just quickly flick through them and just answer those questions that we got. So I'll take the first slide, Bob.
Yes, sorry, before you do that, I just wanted, Tāwehi's put up a message. Thanks, Tāwehi. And I just wanted to say something in addition to the message that he put up. So when will the whānau be able to view the trust deed? That's on our website, and it has been since October last year. So in October, we had a hui to go through the details of the trust deed. In fact, we were doing quite a few changes, not only with it wanting to establish the charitable trust, but also making amendments to our trust deed. So those documents were shared there. They're actually up on our website. So our website is www.TWNART.iwi.nz. So you'll find the trust deed as well as the constitution that are up on the website. Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Bob. So as I mentioned, we had 12 questions pātai come through from the registrations. One of them was, how long is the life of a charitable trust when established? So when we did some work with Chapman Tripp last year, through I think it was quite a few months leading up to October hui with kahui members, the answer to that is our own trust and the charitable trust has a lifetime of 125 up to 125 years. Question 2 was, will kahui members be able to review and vote on the contents of the charity trustee company deed? And as Bob mentioned, that those documents have been put up on our website. So back in October 2021, that's when we had that kahui members hui, and it was held to receive feedback on the content of that trust deed. So we've got that information there if you want to have a jump online and have a look at that. Ka pai.
Yeah, and we're always happy to get any feedback at all from our members, especially around stuff like this. So another question was, will the trustee company be liable for any dealings, assets, liability of the charity trustee company? Our standard trust, the Whakaki Nui Aroa Trust, as well as the charitable trust, they are separate entities in their own right. However, the proposal that's been put forward is that the directors are the same over the two. So the only point where any assets or liabilities are taken into account is when determining a major transaction. So a major transaction is when the trustees want to do make significant changes to the asset base, then they need to go back to the members in terms of a special resolution and have that passed. But apart from that, the assets liabilities remain separate for both companies. And then, yes, was an incorporated society considered as a charitable trust? A few years ago, when we were looking at what our structures should be, yeah, there were some models looked at, but the incorporated society wasn't one of those options. There was a preference to have a charitable trust over an incorporated society, even though you can register an incorporated society as a charity. And you know, once again, the idea of setting up a charitable trust is really to get as much economic efficiency as we can. So with the money that we get in, of trying to minimise that from taxation. The other side of that coin is that, you know, you're restricted in what you can use your profits for. They have to be within that, in the domain of the charitable services, which has a large scope, and we can go through some of that if people are interested in it. But the main reason that we chose the charitable trust over any other model was because of the economic efficiency.
We were asked also to provide a flow diagram for the proposed charitable trust, and that was presented a couple of slides back as the proposed structure. So we can talk more to that as we progress through the hui. And question 6 was, how does pursuing social service contracts sit within the strategic plan? Well, at the moment it doesn't in the short to medium term, but TWNART works alongside Tātou to progress various initiatives. And we use the example of housing. So like most things, we take the lead of Tātou, whatever they're doing. Ka hui work alongside. Yeah, Bob, do you want to add anything else into that one?
No.
No? Okay, next one's your one.
So yeah, another question was asked around our strategic plan and that making that available. So we just need to align with our third trustee, and that's Naomi, who, as Joanna said, couldn't make it today, but we will be putting up a copy on our website. So another question was, do we see there a gap in wider in regard to social services? Yeah, there are quite a few gaps. There's no simple answer around that, but yes, gaps can be identified. For example, there's no local dentistry in Wairoa, motor licensing, you have to go either down the bay or up to Gisborne to do that. You know, there's minimal medical services at the hospital. We've only got you know, the one doctor's practice in town, and you know, our aged care facilities now we've got the Glengarry Rest Home. Well, that can't provide sort of in-care nurse a high level of nursing services anymore because they don't have the capable people to provide that level of care now. So yeah, we do see that there's a gap in it. So we didn't undertake detailed research. These things are well known. But yeah, there are definitely opportunities there.
Okay, so question 10 was what independent advice was sought in regarding to confirmation that taxable income can pass through the trust to the charitable arm. So last year we began huge discussions with Chapman Tripp in regards to our Te Whakakīnui Aroa Trust and aligning with the Trust Act changes of 2019. So that was quite a lengthy exercise that the three of us undertook to make sure that that aligned. And so in those kōreros, we've had Chapman Tripp give us that advice that we needed even to form the charitable trust deed as well. So we've worked closely with them on that. Question 11 was, will there be one fee payable to trustees directors for sitting on the trust and charity trust company? So at this stage, the corporate trustees remain. That's myself, Namu and Bob. And we're paid one fee for both entities. The current trustees that you have elected will become the initial trustees of the charitable trust. Okay, and we can talk more about that when we get to the feedback part as well. Bob?
And then the last question now is, can you explain how future distributions to beneficial owners will be made from the charitable arm? So it will take up a while to build up assets within the charitable trust before any distributions can be made. But in terms of something that falls under that charitable purpose, certainly distributions to our marae, scholarships, grants for educational purposes, and for any other purposes that fit within a broad scope that we've put in as charitable purposes within our trustee.
This is when we get to the exciting part, and we can unmute and have a kōrero about your feedback. So this is an open discussion to gather in your feedback, your whakaaro around what you see the charitable trust doing. Bob, do you want to add a little bit more kōrero to that?
Yeah, no, only that we've, that this today is all about sort of getting your feedback and input, and answering whatever questions you may have. So Tawe, he's been busy on chat there, and he's got a few questions that we can run through.
Is the floor open?
Yep.
Kua tūwhera te papa.
Nā vai kas, kai a koe.
Oia no tēnei no te mihi ki a koe e te tuaka. Nā haura i tuku whakamoemiti mo tātou I tēnei ata. No reira me mihi kātika. Me mihi kātika ki a koe o te rā. Wera ato te whāna kua kuhi mai ki tēnei hui ātopa I tēnei ata. Tēnā koutou, ki ora mai tātou.
Kia ora.
Ko wai tēnei, ko tā wehi manrau tōku nei ingoa, no peki te whakaki nui aru. Oi anō he honanga hoki mai I taku māma ki wetahi atu o ngā waka, o ngā waka Māori o Aotearoa. O reira koe rata. So thank you very much, Joanna, kūrua ko Bob. I suppose, agane pia ko tāku nei ngoi koretanga o kuwaretanga in relation to not bringing myself up to speed in relation to the charitable trust. I'm aware that whether it was earlier this year that there was another meeting that was scheduled, but because of COVID that was postponed. And I attempted, I was going to sort of like access that one. However, within your presentation, you've indicated that October 2021, there was a process that occurred in relation to, and just clarify for me, the adoption of a charitable trust deed for Whakaki Nui Arua. So that's my first question. So we've adopted a charitable trust deed for Whakaki Nui Arua?
So we agreed that was a motion that was going to be put at our AGM, but because of the feedback that we got there in terms of what's the governance structure for it, we agreed to defer doing that implementation until such time as we'd spoken to the whānau around whatever points they may have. So I will say that, the hui that we had in October, which wasn't, the charitable trust was certainly one aspect of it.
Yep.
But then we were wanting to do a couple of other things like make amendments to the trustee, as well as to, create a corporate entity for the trust. There was quite a bit that was information that was shared. And to be honest, there weren't a lot of attendees at that hui.
Okay. Now, ka pai, Bob, and I suppose it's what I find difficult, because it's two governance entities that we talk, that there's the Whakakinui Arua Trust, and you guys look after the unit. And then there's also this other governance entity that is currently being kia Wānanga.
Yeah.
Yeah, kia Wānanga. Me pihia te ara a kei mua iata. So kei te tika tērā?
No.
Okay, ka pai. So I'm very supportive in relation to the establishment of a charitable trust. I need to make that clear, that I'm very supportive. I think if anything, it's more, I suppose, just ensuring that the whānau, or that there's transparency and also visibility in relation to the communications and the process, which it has been, so that our three marae and also those whānau that are not that closely connected are able to participate and also contribute to the conversations moving forward. So kei te tauto. So kuia tāku I tēnei wā, just some initial thinking or initial whakaaro before others sort of like link in. So kia ora Bob, kia ora Joanna, nui te mihi kia kōrua, ne? Kia ora, I'm going to mute myself.
Ka pai kasing tāwehi. Yeah. Kia ora mana.
Oh, kia ora koutou. Just a question. I've just got a couple of things in my mind, but just to start with a question: when do the trustees expect the, if it's, when is it expected that we're going to sit down and vote on this thing? And then how quickly is it going to be set up? In the past, I've been quite critical about the speed that our kahui and our trustees have moved. And I don't want to be sitting here again in 3 years' time and the charitable trust has still not started. So the question, when will they, get up and running? I'm all for the charitable trust. I'm in mixed mind about who the trustee should be, but that's the next thing. But it's really about when is it going to be set up?
Yeah, so because it doesn't require a vote on by our members, it's within the trustees of our Te Whakakinui Trust who can establish that. What the trustees need to have done is made their members aware that this is what they want, that this event has taken place. So that's what we're attempting to do with our hui in October, and then presenting it at our AGM in December. So as soon as we're comfortable that people are okay with us going forward on it, then we'll act on it. We don't need to take it back to our members to actually vote on it.
Okay, kia ora. Now, another thing is the social services arms. That's what government is there to do. The government is there to take care of our social needs, and it's not doing a very good job of it. And yes, I agree that smaller communities like Wairoa kind of it's like the Paul Cousins kind of thing, we're kind of at the tail end of the Hawke's Bay Hospital Board money tree. And I guess it's more about advocating, and I know that there are services within Wairoa, and it's really about, I don't know that we should be getting into social services. I think that tātou should be advocating for Wairoa as a big entity within Wairoa, but we do have some social services. We've got a group that was set up to look at the social services in Wairoa, and so I'm not sure whether the kāhui themselves should be going into that area. I think that, you know, if anything, if we're going to be looking at opportunities, I think that we should be looking at business opportunities rather than social services opportunities. And I look at other kāhui who've bought land, who've bought businesses, and you know, so that we're actually building our own funds rather than waiting for the tātou drop. And we're not getting funds from government to go out and do social service stuff. We're actually building our own businesses here, and that's what I'd like to see. That's after we look at our maraes, because unfortunately to me, I think our maraes are still in need.
Yeah.
So those are sort of, that's couple of things. And then the other thing is around the directors. I think that the directors should be separate from the trustees. So I just feel that sometimes tātou has too much influence on how we, I don't know about other kāhui, but how our kāhui is managing and getting things done. And I know that we, you know, because we get funding from them and they're taking a lead on, you know, orchards and stuff, that's fine. But I just wonder that I'm concerned that we're too influenced by what tātou are doing. For me, I think that the trustees or the directors of the charitable trust should be separate, and I think that they should just be able to get out and get on with it. And you guys focus on whatever it is that the kāhui trustees need to be focused on. That maybe that relationship between tātou is through you guys as opposed to the charitable trustees. They just get on and do what the kāhui are wanting them to do, whether it's social services, whether it's business opportunities, whether it's you know, whatever the funding is that we're trying to attract or give out through the charitable trust. I think that's all with at the minute that I can think of. Thank you.
Oh, ka pai, Kaz. Thank you for that feedback. And Corey, I'll see you arm race. I'll get to you soon. But I just wanted to respond to a couple of things. There were a couple of points that Mana made there. So in terms of the social services, you're quite right. It's not something that we as a kāhui should be providing. There may be services that aren't being provided by anyone at the moment that we may come up with. But you're right, we see ourselves as trustee being in an advocating role around those social services. Why all those questions come about around social services was because of that statement that we made in there, that was one of the reasons that we were setting up the trust for. Well, it's a potential reason that you know, that if we are pursuing anything like that funding that I mentioned for the rangatahi Wānanga there, that there is an entity that's set up to accept it. But we didn't, you know, and then we got those questions back around social services and how we view them. We just thought we'd respond to those questions anyway. But in terms of where the trust lies, yeah, it's government. It's government who have been tasked with providing some of the services or improving some of the services that we've mentioned there. But what we will do as a trust is advocate to tātou, because they're the ones who hold the service agreements with the providers, to you know, deliver more into our area. So that's just a touch on that one. You know, it wasn't the intention of our trust there at this point to go pursuing any of the work within the social services areas. but for us to advocate into it. So the other point that you raised was around the directors, and this is where we wanted to have some robust discussion. Because we are here, and I mean, in some ways, you know, there's a scope of work that we're planning out. Most of that work which can be done under what falls within our charitable purposes. For example, the work that we're outlining to do in Taiao, and we've got another Wānanga coming up for Taiao at the end of the month, would fall under being able to be done under the our charitable arm. So, you know, the main intent of setting up the charitable trust was for us to get the economic efficiencies from out of it. Do we see value in having a separate set of trustees for it? No, because trustees are there in a governance role. The people who will get on and do stuff are those that will take on to do the operational work. So from a trustee or director perspective, you know, from a governance level, the current trustees want to remain over the full scope of the work that the trust's undertaking. And we see some efficiencies in doing that as well. We tried splitting out what the kaupapa, you know, we wouldn't be operated, to me, we wouldn't be operating as efficiently if we could, if we had, and we're overcomplicating things, if we had a separate board of trustees to manage the charitable trust than we do from our discretionary trust, because it's all around governance and what should those organisations be doing. Where the work gets done within, whether that's our normal trust, our standard entity, or a charitable trust, that's the decision that gets to be made. But interested in any other feedback on that, but I'll just, at this point, I'll just move on to Corey, because he's got his hand up with an answer, with the question, sorry.
Tēnā koutou, korua, tautoko ngā mihi kua mihia, tēnā korua e Bob, Jonah, kai arahi tēnei wā, he uri tēnei no whakakīnui ārua, tētahi o ngā whānau horomona i konei, reira tēnā tātou. Thank you both, and yeah, apologies, it's going to be a bit of a background, and then I'm hoping that there's sort of maybe a couple of questions, but they might be interspersed if that helps, just so we can wrap it up. So thank you for addressing some of those queries. Some of them were mine, which were good to see, and I can definitely see the intention. I think the flow diagram was really good, or both of them, just to show distributions, but also I guess the intent in particular is the economic efficiency of using a charitable trust, and I think that's well established for a number of our Māori entities, so that makes sense to me. It was possibly and I raised the question about charitable trust versus incorporated society, mainly because it was about the intentions of the trust in the social development and what sort of contracts, or if you like, the future of the charitable trust. I think I can see, as you've highlighted, Bob, the idea is really for things like Wānanga at Marae and areas where we are driving as the hapu, the social enterprise, if you like, whereas potentially things like health contracts, social development contracts may be more for entities like Te Tai Whenua or Te Wairua, or for Kahumanu exec. And that was why I asked that question around incorporated society, because if we did have visions of going there, potentially that might have been more in line with that being a business as such and getting contracts. But if that's definitely off the table, or at least if we get to revisit that at a time, because looking at the charitable trust deed, it definitely could in the future. I just wonder, are we sort of sure it's more just for the economic efficiency and that it's just for the smaller sort of allowing us to drive our own things without, say, taking on health contracts or social development contracts, or will there be something in the future?
Yeah, thanks for those questions, Corey. Yeah, you know, at this point, and I'll say it again, we don't have any intentions of pursuing any of those social services contracts. As I say, our thrust is just to advocate within that area around whatever our members may bring up, find an applicable place within organisations we work with, like TWNART, to put whatever any issues, needs may be up there and to follow through on those. So yeah, you know, we've got other work to do, especially around getting our TIL work stream going, and you know, those were our priorities lay for the moment.
Cool, thanks. So that would probably say, does that tie into having the trustees, I guess, the same across both entities? Is because if you stay in that advocation or the advocate role, then you're essentially, whether it's with the corporate or the charity, it's the same advocacy. It's just that pass through really of tax that we're trying to gain with the charitable trust. Would that be?
Yeah. I mean, we think that the trustees should be the same over both, because you know, it is looking at the full kaupapa of what Te Whakakī Nui a Rua is doing. Where that work is undertaken comes back to, you know, where can we get economic efficiency from out of it. So if we are, you know, and then what we're attempting to do is stop the funds that we receive from being taxed if there's no reason for it to be taxed. So we imagine that we will be passing funding through to a charitable trust so that we can carry on the work, like within our TIL space, using the charitable trust as a vehicle to do that rather than our discretionary trust.
Okay. Yep, I think But
Mana has raised a good point in what she says, and you know, we need to cop the criticism around us actually getting work started and underway. So, you know, as trustees, we do need to take on board that criticism and do something about it. We're trying to do something about it now, and, you know, certainly want to set this up before we get too much into our TIL work, just so that we can be, you know, as responsible as we can with the money that we have.
All right, kia ora, thank you. Koina.
So I just wanted to, Tawihi, I see you got your hand up, cuz.
I have, but there may be someone else on this that may wish to have a kōrero.
Yeah. You're the only one with your hand up at the moment, cuz. I will ask after you've
okay.
After you've asked.
I just want to sort of like, Managal has raised a good point in relation to retaining mana motuhake. That the intent of tātou tātou at the Wairuana and the establishment of the units was to enable marae and hapu to participate within the whole, I suppose, within the whole redress process. So that's my first point in relation to retaining mana motuhake, retaining a rangatiratanga. not only in relation to each of the three marae, but also within the Whakakē Arua Trust. So I support what Managao has mentioned. Another point is that each of our marae have aspirations, goals, objectives that they want to pursue. And I'm wondering, within the analysis of the trust, whether there are common factors across our three marae that allows us to move in a solid direction. I'm going to assume that Tai Ao is one of those because of the Wānanga and other things that are occurring. And I'm wondering whether within the analysis there are other important kaupapa that have been raised by our marae that the trusts need to consider moving forward, and also what that looks like within, I suppose, for us to be involved, whānau members to be involved. The other point is a charitable trust is another layer in relation to the bureaucracy of the system. And that recognising that there's three, I suppose, directors, yourself, Naomi, and also Joanna, yeah, that your work is to govern. I'm wondering, and Managao has already mentioned that it's been quite, she's been critical in relation to the time factor. And so in relation to you three, that there's been some governance and also operational activity that you've had to do in relation to moving forward in regards to some of the outcomes that you want to achieve. And I just want to acknowledge the three directors yourselves in relation to having to pick up not only a governance arm, but also to operationalize some of the stuff that should move down into a project type person to support the governance. So I see that there's another layer in relation to the charitable trust, even though that I've agreed on it. But like Managao, it's okay. So if we're going to move into a governance structure, and there's going to be another layer, and then we're going to go through perhaps the employment of a project coordinator to coordinate some of the different initiatives that are occurring within the to meet the charitable trust feed. It's a lot because I'm thinking about Whakakē marae, and I suppose some of the marae development that is occurring, and how tata and how the Whakakē Arua can support some of the marae developments, or whether that's already occurring. Nā ku te hea, I haven't been back in a while because I know my brother's back there, and also Bob. And yeah, and I suppose those are just some of the reflections. Is okay, we've got the charitable trust. It's going to be around the economic, social, and cultural development of our people within each of the marae. We've got three directors that are representative of our marae. So I suppose it's about the connection, the governance, the operationalization, and in the end, funding and also other programs, projects, initiatives that are supportive of each of our marae. It's that tangible stuff. I suppose the quick wins within a short time frame of short term, medium term, and also the long term. So that's just some additional reflections. Bobby, I'm going to lower my hand.
Kia ora for all of that feedback, Cuz. Yeah, just to, reinforce, I guess, anyone who goes through trustees training will be told, as a trustee, you're in a governance role. You're not really in an operational role. So that if you tell marae trustees that, probably many of them not going to believe you because they do both. But your first role there is to provide governance, which is what we want to do. Now, we have found it difficult, and we need to take it on board of getting things going, of putting feet on the beat to get things moving. So that's the operational side of things. It is something that we're addressing. We want to start off our initiatives within the tile space, which will include bringing somebody on board to manage that work. So that's where it separates from the governance as opposed to the operational. But we also need to acknowledge there that we need the right vehicles to support that work, and certainly setting up the charitable trust is a step in that direction. And we call it economic efficiency. What we want to try and achieve is to be paying of as less of our money that's coming in to be going out as tax. So, as I say, there's a lot of work that's within our scope that can be defined as being for charitable purposes, and that's what we want to do.
Kia ora. I might just jump in there, Bob.
Sure.
Just hearing the kōrero from everyone, it's been really great. Thank you for sharing. And I just wanted to add, about that different layer that Tauhi talked about. Yes, we three trustees, since the establishment of the trust, have worked really hard to get where it is today. And each three of us have divided up the PO from our strategic plan to concentrate on. And we've tracked fairly well in some areas, and I guess this charitable trust has just come up because we need to progress things a little bit further, a step further, to keep moving forward. And we have realised, as we've tracked through our mahi, even towards the late last year, that we do need to be looking at project management or an administrator to help support. One of the leads I do is kahui establishment. So I feel that where the trust is set up right now, and the things, all the policies, the development, everything sits quite nicely where that is right now. I personally believe that if we were to set up the charitable trust, it would be a very swift movement to be able to get all of that done as well. And I think the three, because the three of us have worked together, we know our capabilities. I see that as being a swift movement to get that done. And then maybe looking at that next operational level, like the can-do, the people that actually get on with and get the mahi done. We now need to fully focus on looking at that. So we do hear you in your kōrero. So thank you for sharing that. Ka pai. Bob.
Ka pai. I just had a query in from Grace around, is there an opportunity within our PSGE to deal with ministries directly? So that's the likes of TPK and Ministry of the Environment. So Grace, there is a thing called SERS, which is a social economic revitalisation strategy. So that's part of any settlement that the Crown does with the PSGE. So yes, and it's an agreement with each of those government agencies that provide either social or economic services between them and the PSGE in terms of commitments that are and work that is scoped out to do. So yes, there is definitely an opportunity, and it's at the tātou level, but we certainly get to input into that SIR stuff that is carried forward by tātou.
Bob, just in support of Grace's question, and Grace, for yourself, I work for the Ministry of Education. In the Ministry of Education, myself and also my director, we engage with tātou o te Wairoa, and that's Lewis. I suppose contracts are signed off by the chair in relation to any of the contracts that occur between tātou o te Wairoa and also the Ministry of Education in support of the social economic revitalisation strategy that is contained within NEDA settlement.
So on that, that'd be a good one if I may. So how does our kāhui work through tātou to have that relationship with the ministries?
That's a really good question.
Sorry, Joanna, were you going to say something there?
Oh, well, I was going to most probably say the same thing. Namu sits on she's our chair, and she sits on a hui with Lewis for all of the kāhui chairs get together, and they have that kōrero. So that's our voice from our members to our chair to the table of tātou. So then Lewis is able to have that kōrero and take back kāhui feedback. I think when we talked about SIRS and Pierre is able to give us an update too, coming back from him down to Kāhui on their progress and establishment with huis that they have with all of the government departments, and there are many of them, and then they're still building that relationship up for more kōreros so that we can be fully informed. But that's kind of the flow up to tātou and back down to Kāhui. So as we get information, then it's now when we, unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't been able to have our kānui te kānui kāhui members huis at marae. We kicked off really well a couple of years ago, and that's where we get to share all of that extra goodness with members. Yep. Bob, do you want to add to that?
No, you covered off what I was going to say the same thing as you.
Okay, cool. We're on the same page. That's good to know. And then I just wanted to pick up on a kōrero from Tauhi about the analysis of each marae, and he talked about what was our top focus. And I guess we're all hearing from you that marae revitalisation, that's one of our po. It's on our po to focus on what our marae need as well. Whakaki, as you know, are working through theirs. I know Iwitia and Te Rauhina also have aspirations for marae revitalisation, so that's really important. But because tile is a real strong focus for tātou at the moment with their new project manager on board, we've been kind of like drawn into that and are focusing more on that at the moment. So we're looking around, as you know, tile's quite extensive. Just really grateful last year that Trevor Waikawa was able to, hold that Wānanga with the rangatahi and the whānau. It was open to everybody last year, and that gave us a good little stepping stone, and we were hoping to gain more momentum of that, but the restrictions have held us back. But in saying that, the three trustees have been behind the scenes working with, say, for example, we have a tile representative, her name is Liz Palmer from Iwitia, and she sits on that committee to be able to kōrero to the project manager to tātou. So we get our kōrero and our updates via our representative there. And she was put in that interim position because we needed someone there. And then there's also the forestry committee as well. So we have a representative there for forestry, and they're able to feed back into our trustees so that if our marae have got some incoming wood being dropped off for firewood for preparation for winter, then that happens as well. So we're kept in the loop in that sense, but I would have to say Namu is our main representative at the table for the GM of tātou, and our feedback comes through here. Ka pai?
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that around our tangata, when we're talking about our tangata, which impacts on our marae. So I'm the one who has that po. And last year I did write out, so I'll declare my interest there. I'm chair of Whakaki Marae, so I'm keep across what the needs of Whakaki Marae are from that perspective. But I've also written out to iwi tia marae and also Te Rauhina marae, wanting to meet up with them in terms of pursuing the same things that we are doing with, sort of similar things that we are doing with Whakaki, which is revitalisation in a number of areas, our buildings, around our the people that we have in our tikanga. So want to look at how we can, develop our kai karanga, our kai whai kōrero, those types of, people that are needed on the marae. So that's very much a work in progress, I guess. The iwi tia, just as a marae, has its challenges over the last 6 months or so. And yeah, I'm just still waiting for a response back from Te Rauhina in terms of going to meet with them. But from the work that's been done with Whakaki Marae, there is a pathway forward if we want to talk around doing of re-energising our marae from buildings perspective and such. Haven't really got into the other aspects of it, like around our tikanga, around our mātauranga.
Kia ora, Bob. Thank you, Joanna. Which sort of like brings me back to the point that Wānanga raised around retaining our own rangatiratanga and our own mana motuhake. Because and I think Joanna, just correct me if I'm wrong, that you mean sometimes we get drawn into some of the other high level priorities that are important for tātou tātou o te wairo. And yes, it's also important for us in relation to taiao, but then there's also other priorities that's important to the whānau of each of our marae. So I suppose for myself, and knowing that I'm linked back into, well, all three marae, I'm just letting you know that I'm open to supporting whatever kaupapa or whatever projects are going to manifest in support of a charitable trust. And that knowing how busy each of you are in relation to governance, I suppose you need some ringa raupa. Hei ringa raupa kia whakatinana ai wetahi o ngā ara whakamua. Within each of our marae, you have whānau that are not only working in government agencies, but also non-government organisations, that when called, mena ka karanga mai, ka puta mai ki waho. So, once again, it's e whakatakotoranga. E whakatakotoranga ma koutou kia whakawhiriwhiri. Karanga mai ki wetahi o te whānau. And ka tautoko. Ka tautoko I rungi te aroha, kia koutou otira, kia tātou marae, me ngā hapu, ki tēnā marae, ki tēnā marae, ki tēnā mo. Okay, I'm going to mute myself again.
Kia ora, Kaz. I just say, I totally agree with you that we have people within our whānui who do have the skills and wills necessary to take some of this work forward. And, when we've scoped out what that work is, then, we'll be advertising within the whānui first for people who are interested in leading that work, like within the tile work that we want to do.
I think it was more for me in a voluntary capacity, Bobby. Wasn't about payments or nothing like that and getting advertised and me applying for a position. It was all about ko te aroha ki te kaupapa ko te aroha ki a tātou mara.
No, ka pai, Kaz. So, those who haven't had an opportunity to say anything, is there any feedback from you fellas?
Kia ora koutou katoa. Ngā kamahi nui, ka nui aku mihi kia koutou. Bob, Joanna, me ngā mihi for your mahi. Ko Grace tuku ingoa, ko horomona tuku whānau. He ori a hau te whakakinui a rua. Ai, like my nephew. Engari, ka noho hoki a ngā hau te taitokoro i nai nei. Ko aku mahi he kaiawhina, kai tautoko o ki te kainga roa, kaiarahi, iwi, te roroa, te tautokoro. You know my mother and my father, so I'm not going to go there. I've been very happy to be part of this conversation and of course to listen. And I mihi to you all for your input. It's kind of good to jump back on board the waka and be involved with my marae. I'm very happy to be part of this. Obviously now I'm based for a little bit in Te Tautokoro, so hopefully there's some things that I can awhi and tautoko in this conversation with regards to the Charitable Trust, because Te Roroa settled in 2008. I'm currently working for that iwi at the moment. So we're delving a little bit into social services. They have a charitable trust, etc. So I'm quite familiar with all that and the arms that are involved there currently. Purely by association, I got lucky to be able to be part of this iwi. They've whāngaid me for a little anyway. But I've been based in Te Tautokoro now for 2 years, having returned from overseas after being away for quite some time. Nevertheless, I do go back home intermittently, especially when I return home. So I'm back at the marae for various occasions. But right now it's good to be back on this waka, jumping back in with my whānau, whanaunga, and having these discussions. And yeah, I'm certainly willing to tautoko, listen, awhi. It's not about payment, but if I can contribute to the discussion, happy to do so, for sure. Kia ora.
Looks as though I'm the only one who hasn't spoken, but yeah, Bob and Joanna and Naomi, thank you for all the hard work you do. I mean, so every time Bob comes home, he's always got his laptop, but he's never without his laptop, and he does so much mahi for Whakaki and the Charitable Trust. So yeah, thanks for all your hard mahi, and you know, it'll be good. It's good going forward with that Charitable Trust.
So you just wanted to get people's feedback on this, on the issue of the trustees as well, whether people think that they should be the same or separate lot of trustees. You know, there's pros and cons to both sides.
I'm happy they're the same. That makes sense to me in what you've explained here. It's the economic efficiency and sort of, if you like, it's also your fiscal responsibility, I suppose, as governors of the corporate trust. So yeah, it makes sense to me. If I could, we digressed a bit before towards the links to Tātou, and I was hoping just to comment on that a bit more. Are you guys, as governors of the kāhui, you happy with sort of that relationship up through to ministries and whatever, but what you have to, say, the Taiao branch of Tātou and up through there, are we able to exercise enough as hapu or whakakinui ārua our mana motuhake through that process? It's not too dilute?
I believe so. Say, taking, for example, the Taiao there, Corey, who Tātou are relying on for their Taiao strategy is the kāhui. And that to me is the right way, you know. it's that ground level input upwards that needs to be done, not a top-down approach. So they're looking out to Kāhui to define what work they want to do within Taiao, and then just, you know, incorporate that, all of those Kāhui plans into their overall Tātou plans. So that really is, you know, a collective effort to determine how that goes. The other thing I'd say is that we have, we've got, you know, Peri's our representative on Tātou, and he's very effective in terms of any feedback that, any discussions or points we raise with him that we feel need to be taken up at a Tātou level. He's always very responsive to that and does that. But yeah, in general, I think Tātou are quite responsive to, certainly to Kāhui input and Kāhui needs. Just all around, you know, it can be at times challenging to get right people in the right role for some of those things. So, you know, our journey around Taiao hasn't been all plain smooth sailing, but, you know, we'll get there in the end. Yeah. Cousin Mana, sorry, Corey, is that?
Oh, thank you. Yes, just probably diverging, but can you just tell me or tell us just really quickly what kind of things are in the Taiao area?
Certainly, you know, and we need to be aware that there are already other organisations like Whakake Lace Trust, for example, that are doing areas in there, work in these areas, but certainly around wetlands. That's the most common thing across our rohe, Te Whakake Nui Aroa, right from, you know, Ngā Motu Lagoon all the way down to Whakake Nui Aroa. So that's an area. Certainly, I know that there are different approaches taken within those three areas. Te Rauhina, Kihitu, Iwitia, Whakake, there are different approaches to how the wetlands management may go. But having a combined voice around what should be happening within those areas is something that you know, we feel that the Kāhui can define and be supporting groups within those areas to accomplish what they want to do.
So you mentioned earlier that there's a Taiao hui planned at the end of the month.
Yes. Yep.
I don't think. Yeah. When will that happen? Have you set a date?
Yes, we have. We've just got to get it out there, which we will be doing early next week.
So post discussions today, we do want to hold a Taiao Wānanga to get Kāhui members' feedback. I mean, the ultimate aim would be to do it kānui to kānui. And we've got to give whānau time. So we have a date in mind coming up. But now that we're, the restrictions, I guess, are a little bit different, we might be able to do that. So trustees are just weighing up whether we do this online or whether we do it kānui to kānui at a marae. So that pānui will go out next week. We'll make a decision when we meet next week. But it is something that we actively want to pursue, having a more interactive workshop, you know, with some whiteboards and breaking out into groups and things like that. So we've we've done some planning in the last month or so, Bob, with Namu. So we've got some ideas to help progress that forward, but it's all about timing and how we hold it. But it is incoming to your inbox soon.
Okay. And invitations will be sent out like to the big, like to the Lake Trust and or you know, I'm just sort of a bit.
Yeah.
you know, around, and here we have a huge, our lake system, just here in Whakakei, 500 odd hectares of lake system that's managed by an Ahu Whenua Trust, and how, you know, the engagement with the different land trusts that are looking after their own little bit of the environment, of the wetland environment, because I don't think that the trusts themselves are in, you know, holding hands with each other, which, you know, so this whole idea of trying to look at Taiao as a bigger thing along this coast, for example, I think it's a good idea. But it's just really about ensuring that those trusts that actually have got ownerships, and who represent the owners of the different pieces of wetland, that they're you know, sort of involved or consulted in this whole thing that you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, kapai mana. Yeah, we are aware of, you know, the bigger entities like the Whakake's Lakes Trust, like TWN.
Yeah.
There's some others down at
Kihitu.
Yeah. For the smaller ones, you know, we haven't, and we don't think it's our, so it's pulling together our, what are the things that we want to pursue under Taiao. So once again, we're looking for input. You know, some of those smaller whānau operations there, hopefully we'll be able to get at them by them being a member and on our distribution lists for communicating out the hui that's coming up.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Just hopefully trying to get it in before we go, given this hui is recorded. I suppose back to the point here, just wanted to say from what I've heard on the in this discussion, thank you again for the consult back with the kahui. I'm in support of the charitable trust establishment, given the reasoning, and from here what it looks like it works. I support that. Just as a comment, we can often, and it's been clear here today, through our marae, that's our embodiment, I guess, of how our hapu function often. But the mana resides with our hapu, and I'm very impressed that you've brought it back to the people. And often we can overlook this very important structure of governance for the sake of trying to get operational as quickly as possible. So I appreciate that you guys are trying to get that structure, that foundation of governance as robust as possible for whatever may come. So I appreciate that. And yeah, tēnā kōrua, tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, Kōrī. So, you Tauihi, is that you, Kaz?
Yeah, that's me. I suppose you answered, or you asked the question in relation to the trusteeship, Bobby. And I've already provided support to the charitable trust. I'd also like to provide support to the three directors that you've indicated. So yeah, kei te tautoko. Kei te tautoko i a koutou, ngā toko toru. Kia whakahaere i te rāmea ko te charitable trust. Karehe rara. Just a couple of additional points. I suppose when we talk about Taiao, it can be, the terminology itself can be interpreted dependent on who you're talking to. And I suppose, for example, my interpretation of Taiao is the natural environment regeneration and what that looks like. Kia hoki anō te Māori. Kia hoki anō te Māori ki te wai, pēra I te rāmia o te whakaki. And I suppose we need to be clear in relation to when we use a Māori phrase, like tai ao, and that is quite definitive in relation to its meaning, so that there's no misinterpretation or from any of our whānau in regards to what it looks like within the huarahi that we're going to move down through. Another comment that I just wrote down was one size fits one rather than one size fits all. And that's, for example, the tai ao for whakaki is different to tai ao for iwitea, which is different to tai ao over at Kihitu. So it's a one size fits one. And we need to be very mindful of that, because that's how our marae and also our hapu retain their mana motuhaki and their rangatiratanga in relation to the phrase tai ao and what it means for themselves. However, as a collective, in relation to whakaki nui ārua, then there's, I suppose, commonality in relation to what we need to do and how we advocate upstream via piri back into everyone else. Okay, koe nei te ki o whakaki nui ārua kei moi a koutou. So thank you very much to each of you, our trustees, for te whakaki nui ārua. I'm very appreciative and also, I suppose, grateful in respect to the work that you do. And kia kahakia mai. Kia kahakia mai, kia horata marino, kei mui a koutou mahi, kei konei mātou, wetahi o ngā uri, o ngā hapu, e tautoko ai ia koutou. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora, cousin. Kia ora, cousin. So I'll just open it up again, just in case anybody else has anything that they want to provide feedback on or input into. Mariella, are you okay with things? I'll take the nod of the head as yes.
It's been a robust discussion, cousin, so I think it's good. I'm happy that we've been able to have this kind of korero relative to the kaupapa that was laid down today. Mihi nui, I think that's great. I am also in support of the Charitable Trust, now working under one here, so yeah, very much so. And again, grassroots down, going back up to via piri. I'm very keen to see that momentum maintained, because it's quite key to us moving forward, whakaki nui arua. So for me, that, yeah, big tautoko in respect of that, and really just seeing how that represents us. I agree with Tauahi that one size fits one. So there is definitely that as a critical part to this discussion as well. But otherwise, it's been very enjoyable listening to everything that's been said. So I'm very happy to be part of this and hopefully ongoing. But again, thank you for your work to date. I'm sure you'll keep us posted, updated. Kia ora.
Oh, goodbye, guys. So any other discussion out there? Otherwise, we'll close things off for this morning.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Joanna.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Okay. Cousin Tawi, can I call upon you to close us out, please?
Ka pai, Bobby. Nā, tēnā koe, Bobby. Ia no, ka horahia te mihi me te aroha ki rungi a koto. Ia no, ka tikana atu te mauri o ngā kōrero, kua kōrero hia, kua Wānanga hia. Kia whakeiringia ki te pātū o te whare ki kona, ki kona. Kia māma, kia wātia. Kia māma, kia wātia, ia tātou kia hoki anō, ki wa tātou whānau, kia hoki anō, ki wa tātou kāinga, I rongi te aroha a me te rangi mari e, o tō tātou kaihanga, tūturu ka whakamau ai kia tēnā, haume e, hui e, tai hui e.
Tēnei te mihi kia kaupau kato e te whānau.
Ai,
Ki
kia
te.
ora.
Ki te whānau.
Ki te.
Kia ora.
Ki te.
Thank
Kia
you,
ora.
everyone.
Ki te.
You can close out now, sis. I just need to talk to my mate Joanna. Bye. How's mum? How's mum?
Oh,
I
she's
can't
on
hear
mute.
you. You're going to need to turn your volume up. No, I can't hear you. You're going to have to turn your volume up. No. She okay?
Thumbs up for an okay. Oh, she's trying to. Down the bottom.
No, nothing. Oh.
Oh, does she know where to find it at the top? I mean, at the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little mute button there.
Yeah, no, she's not on mute. You just hadn't got volume coming through.
Oh, she hasn't got audio
Yeah.
on. You can't switch it on, Bob.
No, I
Actually,
can't switch her audio on. It'll be one of her settings on her laptop. Anyway, sis, I'll give you a call later on, eh?
ka
See
pai.
ya. Thanks for joining us.
Ka pai. Do you want to stop the recording? Well, that'd be a good point. We might have to just pull that one back a bit.
Stop recording.